Welcome, Joe, to the Global AV Sales Tech Talk series. For those of you who don't know Joe Perfito, Joe is the president of J Gow, who manufactured Tributaries and Clarus Cables. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Mica. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I would like to know, how did you get into the cable business?
Oh, that's a little bit of a long story. Originally my background is that I graduated from New York University with a degree in electrical engineering, and after that I was part of something called the ROTC, which is the Reserve Officers Training Corps in the U.S. Air Force. That was part of my college education. And after I graduated from NYU, I went in. Well, I was scheduled to go into the Air Force. I graduated in June, and I was scheduled to go in November. And in between that time, I got a job at NBC Studios in New York, and I was a cameraman for about 4 months at NBC Studios, doing nightly news, 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock nightly news, and a couple of other interesting shows like Concentration. And so that kind of put me a little bit in the entertainment part of the industry, getting involved in that. But after that, I reported for duty at Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, Georgia, and pilot training. And I went through 1 year of pilot training in the Air Force, and then spent 4 years as a pilot instructor during the Vietnam War. And our squadron trained Vietnamese students to get their U.S. Air Force pilot wings. So after that, I left the Air Force and went to work at the stereo shop in Hartford, Connecticut, as basically as a sales guy in that. And I stayed there and became the manager of that store. And at the same time, my sister was running the office, and my brother, who owned the store, was away on a extended vacation. And we managed that store for a few years, and decided at one point that we wanted to leave, and we left. And my sister and I started our own store in Boston, Massachusetts, and we ran a store. And at that time, we were McIntosh dealers, so we were selling McIntosh equipment. And I got hired from that store by Gordon Gow from Mac. He was the president of McIntosh Laboratory at the time, and he hired me to be the Southeast Regional Sales Manager for McIntosh. This is 1975.
Oh,
So
wow.
1975, I became the Southeast Regional Sales Manager for McIntosh. And in about 1981, I became the National Sales Manager for McIntosh. And in 1989, Gordon died, and my sister, at that time, my sister had actually married Gordon Gow, so he became my brother-in-law. And after he died, the company that purchased McIntosh, Clarion Corporation out of Japan, asked me to move to Binghamton, New York. I was at the time living in Orlando, Florida, and they wanted me to move to Binghamton, and I declined the offer and left the company. And in December of 1990, and my sister and I started our company together, and we named our company after Gordon. And it's Gordon J Gow Technologies is the full name of the company, and we named it after Gordon as a tribute to him. And so my sister and I started this, and then she left the company about 2 years after that. And so I've been operating the company actually since April the 30th of 1991. So we've been 33 years now in business. And I got started in cables because at the time, Monster Cable this is the early 90s, was the major brand of cables in the US. And I felt that a number of things that they promoted were not scientifically correct, that they were really a lot of stretching of what I call reality and scientific principles. And I decided that there was a place for a company that could have products, cables that were manufactured, designed and manufactured with scientific background and scientific principles rather than hype. So that's how it started. And we got into that and we worked with companies. And also at that time, Monster Cable had gone from basically small independent dealers to national accounts, like at that time, Circuit City was the major one. Another one was Tweeter. And these companies had stores all over the United States. And Monster Cable was having a problem in that they couldn't supply their smaller dealers fast enough, and dealers were having to wait a month or more for their products. So it was at the time when I started, and these dealers were looking for a company that could supply them quickly and also with a better product, which is what we had. And because I had knowledge of all the better dealers in the US, because working for McIntosh, I knew who all the top dealers were. I was able to approach them with our products, and in a number of cases, they decided that, yeah, Tributaries would be a great brand to have rather than Monster Cable. So that's how it started, Mica.
Oh, wow. It's a very interesting story, actually.
Yeah.
Well, you were saying that behind it's the story about how you created the company's name, GJ Gow, and how you came up with the name Tributaries. How came this idea to you?
Yeah, when we first started, wanted to name the products Tribute
Mm-hmm.
as a tribute to Gordon, but I didn't like the sound of Tribute Cables. I just didn't like the way they sounded, those words together, Tribute Cables. It didn't sound to me like they worked well together.
Mm-hmm.
And was discussing this with one of my McIntosh dealers, actually, and I mentioned that, and he said, "Oh, well, why don't you call them Tributaries?" And I said, "Wow, that's a great name." We checked with our trademark attorney, and they said that name is available for wire and cable. So we trademarked it, and that's how we started the Tributaries name and brand.
Nice. And
Yeah.
another question, what holds Tributaries cables apart from all the cable brands on the market?
Yeah, the one of the things that's so important, and something when I started the company, I wanted all our products, all the Tributaries cables, to be made in the USA from products that were made in the USA.
Mhm.
And that lasted about a year because I couldn't find companies that would make connectors like RCA connectors, XLR connectors, spade plugs, banana plugs, all the different pieces that we needed for the cables. I couldn't find a US company that could make those for us with any kind of reasonable pricing levels. So we wound up having to go to the Far East for those connectors. As far as the cable goes, we started with a number of US cable companies, but we found them very difficult to work with because the designs that we had on the cables were they were unusual, and these companies were not used to making these kind of audio cables. So then we had one company that was making speaker cable for us. To give you an idea of this, one company was making speaker cable for us, 16 gauge and 14 gauge, just speaker wire with clear jackets. And we had ordered made a purchase order for quite a few rolls of these cables, and they were supposed to be made with oxygen-free copper. I got a call from the sales manager and said, we're out of oxygen-free copper. would it be okay to use bare copper? And bare copper is a low grade. That's kind of the cheapest, least quality cable copper there is for wire. And I said, no, I can't do that because we advertise our products as made with oxygen-free copper, and I would not want to do that with this. I'm sorry about this. Hold on a second. Let me just do one thing. So he wanted to do it with bare copper, and I said no. I said, I can't do that. And his response was, "Who's going to know? Who's going to know what type of copper is in it? You could do it with it." And I said, no, I can't do that. Well, that was the last time we used anything from that company, and I decided at that point, I had made some excellent relationships with a few of the companies from the Far East, principally in Taiwan. And I knew that these companies had levels of integrity that were quite a bit better, wouldn't do something like that. So that's what we wound up doing. And we source now our products from various countries. But we bring them all here into Orlando, and we do the fabrication, we do the assembly, the soldering, and all the parts get put together here in Orlando. Nobody else does that in the Tributaries price ranges. Some of the higher price cables, yes, there are companies that make them in the US, but not in the price ranges of Tributaries.
Yeah, and also now Clarus Cables take the level up again. And what is it that makes them superior, and how do they differ from Tributaries?
Well, when we make a comparison with our cables, and I did this recently with another very well-known brand, we bought some cables from this brand, took them apart, and number one, they're all made in China, and we found that internally, going from about a $50 retail price up to a $250 retail price, 4 different levels, internally they were all the same. It's the same copper, the same gauge, the same shielding, the same dielectrics. But they were just changing the color of the jacket and charging more. And we don't do that in our cables as we go from model to model. And give you an idea, our Tributaries hierarchy and what we call our cables in models. It's model 2, 4, 6, and 8. Series 2, 4, 6, and 8. And it's pretty understandable that Series 2 is the least expensive and Series 8 is the most expensive and the highest performance product. Well, as we go from Series 2, 4, and 6, 8, we improve the gauge of the copper, the type of the copper, the shielding, the dielectric, and the connector. Basically, every part of that cable is improved as we go from model to model to model. And this also then reflects back in the performance of the cable, where the performance of each model is better than the one before. So the bass is better, the high frequencies are clearer, the noise floor is lower, the depth of image is better as you go from model to model to model. And that's what's important, that a customer knows that if they have, if let's say they have a Series 4 cable, and they know that if they upgrade to a Series 6 or a Series 8, that they're going to have an improvement in sound quality. It's not just going to be, I'm going to spend more money on something. It's actually going to result in an improvement in performance. And that's what's important.
There is a real upgrade. Yeah. And your HDMI cables are also something special. Maybe you can tell us what makes them so reliable in comparison to others, especially the longer length cables?
Yeah, and also what's available on the internet. HDMI is a huge problem for many people. They have difficulty with the cable, mainly because the cables that come out of China, which is all HDMI cables, are now coming out of China or Vietnam. And The cables, by and large, are, for the most part, are very inexpensively made. There's quite a cutback for a lot of these companies on the amount of copper, and especially in the amount of shielding, and then how they're actually put into the jacket. So knowing that, we started with HDMI back when HDMI began in the early 2000s. I think it was around 2002, 2004. And we found out very quickly that we did not have a good understanding of the technology, because HDMI would not release the technology. So nobody knew how this stuff worked. And even with a degree in electrical engineering, had no way of knowing. So what we were buying, or what we would attempt to buy from these companies, basically in China, were unknown quantities. We had to just hope that they worked properly. Nobody knew. It took a while, but then we became involved with DPL Labs, and DPL Labs is a laboratory that is in Ormond Beach, Florida, and their only function is to test and verify the performance of HDMI cables. They don't sell any products. They are a testing laboratory. And the beauty of that company is that they have all the necessary test equipment. Now, this test equipment is anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. And, any private company is not going to have that. Even the manufacturers in China don't have that capability. HDMI, their automated testing centers have that. But that's it. In North America, this is the only place in North America, DPL Labs, that has that capability, that I could go to them with a cable, an HDMI cable, and say, hey, give me a performance evaluation of this product, of this cable. And they could do that.
Yeah.
No one else really could do that. So we started working with them very closely to make sure that everything that we were purchasing from the Far East was in fact performing up to the specifications that the manufacturer was telling us. So we do that for all our cables. DPL Labs looks at everything before we sell it. So we get an order, we get our first products in that are samples. Before we place a purchase order, we get samples. They go to DPL Labs. DPL Labs will tell us, okay, these perform properly, either 18 gig or 48 gig. And after we get that assurance, then we place our orders with our supplier. Then when those orders come in, when we get delivery, we take 5 of each samples of each length, and we send that to DPL Labs to ensure that what we got in the shipment was what they were supposed to be sending us. And when we get assurance from DPL Labs that they do meet all the specifications, then we release them for sale. If they don't meet the specifications, they don't, and they get sent back to the supplier. But that only happened once, a long time ago. And once that company realized that we were doing that kind of testing, they were very careful to make sure that what we got was operational. So now all our cables are tested and verified. And then to second that, since DPL is not testing every cable, they're just testing those samples. However, the cables that we get, all of those cables are hand tested 100%. Each and every cable is tested before it's packaged and before it's shipped. So we use the Meridio generator system, and they have a generator monitor system that we use for testing HDMI cables. So we can do an actual testing of it. Now, it's not a full certification test, but it's an operational test to make sure that they do perform properly. And each cable is tested before it's shipped. So that ensures that for a dealer that he's going to get a cable that's going to work, especially on the long cables. On the short cables, we find that there are many companies that ship these cables. Well, if you get a bad one, just throw it away. We'll send you a new one. Well, that's a lot of time and energy and cost to do that, especially if it fails after you leave, after the installer leaves and has to go back. It's a very expensive proposition. So we take the position those cables should work right from the first time that they are connected, and we make sure that that happens.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, Joe, for your time. Well, thank you so much for everybody watching this video. I hope to see you soon in the next video, and please leave on comments any questions you have so we can prepare a second part.
Okay, we'll do it, Mica.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe.
Okay, thank you. Talk to you again soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.